On November 5, 2025, inside Moscow, 57 of Russia's most powerful officials gathered for a decision that could reshape the course of the war, and possibly the world. They were meeting to approve the final authorization for a limited nuclear strike against Ukraine. The plan was precise and terrifying. 3 S-500 Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missiles were prepared for launch. Each missile carried 10 nuclear warheads. In less than 8 minutes, 3 major Ukrainian cities could be erased from the map. The scale of destruction would be unlike anything seen in Europe since the Second World War. Inside the Kremlin, the mood was controlled and confident. The complex was considered untouchable. It sat behind one of the most expensive and sophisticated air defense networks ever built, valued at more than $9 billion, since at the center of that shield was the S-500 Prometey system, Russia's most advanced anti-air and missile defense platform. The officials believed no aircraft or missile could penetrate it. They believed they were safe. What they did not know was that the operation had already been detected. At exactly 10 o'clock a.m., the meeting began inside the Kremlin's Grand Council Hall. Outside, Moscow was quiet. The sky was gray, the streets calm. Inside the room, a single folder rested on the table. Its label read, Sarmat Operational Test Final Authorization. President Vladimir Putin sat at the center, flanked by senior military commanders and defense officials. When he spoke, it was in a low, steady voice. He said the war would end on Russia's terms and that the West would be reminded who truly controlled the skies. The room responded with silent agreement. No one objected. No one questioned the plan. What no one in that room realized was that their conversation was not private. 30 meters underground, in a Ukrainian intelligence operations center, encrypted signals were being processed in real time. Ukraine's military intelligence wasn't just listening to communications. An advanced AI system was tracking abnormal activity across multiple layers of Russian infrastructure. It monitored power fluctuations from the Kremlin's secure electrical grid. It intercepted encrypted data traffic between Russia's Strategic Missile Forces headquarters and several Sarmat missile silos. It watched for patterns that on their own meant little, but together told a clear story. At 10:17 a.m., everything aligned. A sudden spike triggered immediate analysis. Encrypted audio, massive power draw, and live silo readiness checks formed a clear picture. Within seconds, the system flagged the event as Category Omega. A nuclear pre-launch sequence was confirmed. Ukraine now had minutes to respond. A two-phase plan was already in motion. Phase 1 was deception. 15 Bayraktar T-Beatwo drones were launched near the border, programmed not to strike but to provoke. On Russian radar, they appeared as large, irregular signals designed to force air defenses to activate. As expected, Russian systems reacted immediately. Missiles launched, radars locked on, and interceptor systems fired. One by one, the drones were destroyed, but each sacrifice revealed critical information. Frequencies, lock-on times, response delays, and blind spots were recorded and transmitted back to Ukrainian analysts. 14 drones were lost, but Moscow believed the threat had ended. That false confidence created the opening Ukraine needed. Phase 2 was the strike. 10 Ukrainian Mi-29 fighter jets were launched, heavily modified after nearly 2 years of covert upgrades. Radar-absorbing materials reduced visibility, infrared suppression lowered heat signatures, and digital stealth software altered how the jets appeared on enemy sensors. Together, these upgrades reduced detectability by nearly 90%. Armed with air-to-air and anti-radiation missiles, the strike package was valued at roughly $200 million. Their target was the Kremlin command complex itself. To reach it, they would need to penetrate over 600 kilometers of the most heavily defended airspace on Earth. Facing layered systems including Buk M3 batteries, Panzer-sewn units, long-range radar arrays, and the S-500 Prometey. At 10:30 a.m. Kyiv time, confirmation arrived. Category Omega was locked. The nuclear launch sequence was real. Inside the Ukrainian command center, silence filled the room before the decision was made. Retreat was no longer an option. If Russia launched first, millions would die. The order was given to strike the heart of the system. At 11:02 a.m., the MiG-29s descended from altitude and accelerated toward Moscow. Using data gathered from the destroyed drones, their systems displayed a narrow timing window. A fraction of a second blind spot in the S-500's radar cycle caused by internal processing delay. That gap was their only way through. The jets flew in coordinated pairs, alternating roles between target designation and missile launch. This tactic flooded Russian defenses with overlapping signals. The first pair deliberately triggered the S-500's engagement radar. Instead of turning away, the lead pilot flew directly toward the threat and launched 2 anti-radiation missiles, which slammed into the S-500's command vehicle. A hole opened in the defensive shield that had long been considered invulnerable. Moments later, 20 air-to-surface missiles streaked toward the Kremlin complex. Russian defenses responded instantly. Cockpits filled with alarms as pilots released flares, chaff, and executed extreme evasive maneuvers. Interceptor missiles detonated just behind aircraft canopies. One Ukrainian Mi-G-29 was destroyed by a hypersonic interceptor. A Russian Mi-G-31 dove in to engage, but a Ukrainian wingman intercepted it, launching an air-to-air missile and pulling the interceptor away from the strike path. The defense was intense. 18 of the 20 missiles were intercepted. But war does not require perfection, only opportunity. 2 missiles made it through. They struck the Kremlin guest complex less than 200 meters from the main building. The explosions echoed across Moscow. 5 officials were killed, 20 others were injured. Windows shattered across the city. Sirens filled the streets. State media went dark for 11 minutes as civilian footage spread rapidly online. Moscow had been hit. One damaged Mi-G-29 barely escaped. The pilot refused to eject, flying at rooftop height and using the city's heat and noise to mask his engine's signature. Against the odds, he crossed back into Ukrainian airspace alive. Within minutes, the world knew what had happened. Ukraine had struck the center of Russian power. Rescue crews searched the rubble. Inside the Kremlin, confidence gave way to silence. Power had been touched and power felt fear. In Kyiv, there was no celebration. Only a brief report confirmed the primary objective was achieved. Ukraine had proven it could penetrate Russia's most protected command structure. Markets reacted immediately. The ruble dropped sharply. Private flights carried elites out of Moscow. Across Russian cities, small crowds gathered quietly, staring into the sky. For the first time, Russia was no longer untouchable. World leaders watched closely as secure phones rang across Washington, Berlin, and Beijing. The question echoed behind closed doors. If this could happen today, what could happen tomorrow? The strike was not about revenge. It was about leverage. Ukraine did not need to end the war that day. It only needed to prove the balance had shifted. Wars do not always end with explosions. Sometimes they end with the silence that follows when both sides realize the next step costs more than the last. That moment had arrived. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated with in-depth breakdowns like this. If you found this analysis valuable, hit the like button. It really helps support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.